Hello, love. Thank you for coming so quickly when you were called. Oh, no, it's nothing urgent at all. I just wanted to spend time with you. I've been busy most of the day, and I'd love nothing more than to enjoy some time by the fire. Come here and let me hold you, love. You're so warm. I apologize that I can't warm you up in the same way. No body heat. Oh, well, that's very sweet. I love the way you feel when you snuggle against me as well. My love, I've been thinking about what happened a few days ago with my little breakdown. I am deeply sorry for that. Yes, I know we agreed that it's all right for me to be vulnerable, but still. I suppose I'm not quite comfortable with showing personal weakness to you. In fact, especially to you. The way you look up to me means so much. Not to mention, your eyes get so adorably wide when I flaunt my powers or my wealth or my experience. You really like a woman who's capable, don't you? And let's not forget how precious you look when you blush. It's so funny. I can't bear to be seen as weak, but you can't seem to be able to handle praise. We complement each other in that way, don't we? Come to think of it, sometimes I wonder why I never tried to find someone like you sooner. When I was immortal, I was seeing someone just like you, and we were so happy. Oh, but listen to me. Talking about an old lover to my current one. How thoughtless. Oh, well, you're right. I don't talk about my mortal life much. I suppose it's like how a mortal doesn't necessarily talk about what was important to them when they were a small child. It comes up occasionally, but you're just so different now that who you were doesn't much resemble who you are. Yes, I suppose that's fair. Though, honestly, I don't think that I was especially interesting as a mortal. I was actually a little bit older when I was turned than my appearance suggests. The vampirication process has a slight de-aging effect. I never did get married. So many people wanted and expected me to that I remained single for a long time, sheerly out of spite. I found other things to occupy my time instead. I was actually a bit of an artist, so different from my livelihood now. I've become much more pragmatic over the centuries. But yes, eventually I did find someone that I cared for. He was such a sweet thing. The two of you don't resemble each other physically, of course, but he was so like you in spirit. kind, respectful, a bit timid, but with a strong emotional intelligence. It started with him buying my drawings. He would come to me often and ask about my masterpieces. That's what he called them, anyway. If I'm being honest, he was being quite generous with the term. But he always asked so many questions about them, and he was such a good listener. It was so encouraging to have someone who just cared. You're much the same way. I have other dear ones who care about me, of course, but none of them are like you. You're so wonderfully thoughtful to me, and you seem to appreciate everything I do. Just as my mortal lover made me feel like the talented and skilled artist I tried to be, you make me feel like the powerful, confident vampire I try to be now. But back then, I had to part ways with him, thanks to my death. Or undeath, rather. No, I never did try to make it work with him. It would have torn him up to see me like this. Probably just as much as it did for him to learn that I died. By letting him believe that I was resting in peace, he at least had the chance to move on. Well, that is exactly the sort of sweet, optimistic thing I would expect you to say. But it's worth noting that I've had centuries to clean up my act. The truth is, when I was first turned, I was a complete wreck. I struggled constantly with my bloodlust, and I was full of self-loathing. I constantly struggled with thoughts of suicide, or of revenge against the vampire who made me this way, which would have been essentially the same thing because I wasn't nearly powerful as I am now. Let it suffice to say, I wasn't in a good mindset to continue a relationship. I ended up leaving my hometown behind, searching for help. That's what led me here, to 𝐒𝐫𝐻𝐵𝐻. Oh, yes. 𝐒𝐵𝐻𝐵𝐻 was well established even all those centuries ago, although it was much more secretive back then. To tell you the truth, I had a lot to do with bringing knowledge of 𝐒𝐵𝐻𝐵𝐻 to the larger world. Before me, the vampires of this city believed that secrecy was their best weapon, and so knowledge of it was extremely limited. If a non-vampire learned of its existence, they were taken and kept here. This made it very difficult to get the workers they needed to build it and keep it running, and even more difficult to get supplies. Most of all, it made it hard for vampires to know that it even existed, that there was an alternative to preying on the innocent. After I got settled here, I gradually started to rise in importance. I used that to my advantage to push the idea of revealing ourselves to the world. Things are much better now, in my opinion. Being exposed to the world means that we have to be vigilant in case of attack, but we've never encountered a force we weren't prepared for. And now we can actually do what 𝐒𝐵𝐻𝐵𝐻 was founded to do, be a safe haven for vampires who want to live peacefully. Not to mention, it's what allowed me to start my practice of rescuing slaves. Actually, I've been thinking about that lately. About whether I'm really doing the right thing there. I mean, There can be no doubt that the slaves I buy would suffer much worse fates otherwise. But is that enough to justify it? I do my best to provide for you all, but I don't really give you a choice. The thing is, I know that most of my dear ones would leave if given the choice. Not at all because I mistreat them, but simply because it was something thrust upon them. I gave them a better life than they would have had if they had been sold to someone else. In fact, for most of them, it's a better life than they would have had if they hadn't been captured at all. But it still wasn't their choice. And that leaves me in a difficult position. If I let them all go, I wouldn't have enough left to feed myself. My options would be to starve to death, or more likely start killing to feed myself. When a vampire gets truly hungry, they tend to lose their self-control. So that's what would end up happening. And so I tell myself that this is the fairest option. I find it so confusing the more I think about it. Is doing a good deed enough if I could be doing more good by sacrificing myself? And what about my fortune? Am I a bad person if I don't give all my money away? Even if I were left destitute, there would still be people who were worse off than me. So should I just be giving it all to them? I don't mean this in a bad way, but I didn't worry about these things until we became a couple. You make me want to be the best person I can be. Moral ambiguity just doesn't feel acceptable anymore. So, what do you think? You were so scared the night I bought you. Was that fear justified? Am I the frightening creature you thought I was? Thank you, my love. It makes me very happy to hear that you're happy. Perhaps you're right. I didn't have to make all my dear ones as comfortable as they are. If I'm already doing more than I need to, who could ask me to do even more? And I do believe I just bore my soul to you for the second time this week. I keep saying I want to be strong for you, but you just seem to pull it out of me. I suppose that's because of how loving and accepting you are of me. Thank you for spending this time with me, love. If you like, you can return to what you were doing before. Take care. I love you, my dear, sweet human. And after all that, I couldn't bring myself to tell them about the letter. When am I going to gather the courage?